Let's blow this up.
Look alive, Bomb Squad. We are back for another installment of Let's Blow This Up Live. I am your host, Jason Sircone. Glad to have you here in the house once again for another unscripted, raw conversation with another very fun personality. And I'm going to bring her here on stage in a moment. And just to give you a little bit of a preview of what you're in for, this is one of the most fun people that I've met since I've got into podcasting. And we've done some collaborations in the past. And she's got some killer books that we're going to talk about a little bit tonight, but she's also a life coach. She's a podcaster, and she brings a lot of knowledge and expertise to the table. And her story is awesome. So without further ado, let's bring back to the stage, or onto the stage. Actually, I shouldn't say back. She was here talking with me earlier. I had to kick her off for a second. Now we're going to bring her back on. Karin Freeland. What's up, Karin?
Hi. I love your intro. That was so fun to watch.
Thank you. I've been getting a lot of compliments about that.
Rightly so. It's awesome. It's the bomb.
Oh, man. They're breaking out the dad jokes in the first 30 seconds. Very good. Very well planned pun. No, that was, again, I go back to the branding and all the things that I could do with Bombtrack Media and making things explosive and making things the bomb. That was a very big part of everything. And obviously the name of Let's Blow This Up came from that brand name as well. So once again, shout out to my friend Alexander Watkins for pushing home how hard or how well good branding can do for you and coming up with all these little spin-offs and things that you can do with it. Can't thank her enough for that tutelage because it's put me where I am and getting all these amazing compliments from my guests as they join me here on the show.
So good. I love it.
I will take the praise and I will take that and wear it as a badge of honor. So thank you, Karin.
You're welcome.
Welcome to the show again. Like I said, we've been friends now for a couple of years, having connected on the podcast space. I feel a lot of the people that I am bringing here on the show to collaborate with came into my world because of podcasting.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about some of the strong elements of podcasting that we don't talk about enough? It's this part of it. It's the relationships that you get to build. And it was very cool to finally meet you in person last month when we were in Charlotte. And
so
I'm glad
fun. I love Charlotte. Such a great city.
You made the trek last minute, and that was awesome.
Yeah, I know. It was like I didn't even know about the event. I found out on like a Tuesday, and the event was Saturday, and I was like, okay, we're gonna move things around. I got to be there. Got to be with my podcast peeps.
Now, see, you're proving that you've never watched the show because for about a month leading up to the Empowered Podcasting Conference, I had all these people on talking about the show. So you have been outed.
Well, I was on your other show, and I used to listen to your other show.
Because I like you so much, I'm going to give you a pass. But it was great. It was great to have you in the house at Empowered Podcasting. And I know I got some impact from that conference. What was your experience from getting to connect with all those great people and seeing all the amazing presentations that took place?
I mean, it was nonstop jam-packed. I had pages of notes. I mean, it's hard to pinpoint one thing, but I especially loved the talk on podcast awards. I'd never considered submitting my podcast for an award before. And that's definitely something that I'm going to be focusing on in the next 6 to 12 months is really getting some of those submissions in and see what the pros are thinking of my show.
Yeah, that was a great presentation by Dominic Lawson, and I actually talked to him on Sunday morning about joining me here on the show, hopefully in September. So we're going to dive into that aspect of podcasting a little bit more because I sat in that same presentation. I never really thought about it either, but the way that he explained it, because Let's Blow This Up still is a fairly new show. I released the first season, and then I went to this live stream, and I believe you're the 12th episode in the live stream. And right? Like there's still a lot of room for growth, but from what Dominic taught us is that's okay. You could still be a fairly new podcast and submit what you've done to those judges to potentially give you an award that could put your show on another level. And speaking of empowered podcasting, we're joined by the founder himself, Mark Ronick.
What's up, Mark? Hey, Mark. Thanks for being here.
Glad you could be in the house with us once again, my friend. So Karin, we got to talk about everything you've been doing. So we first crossed paths. I think it was around the time that you had just released your first book.
Mhm.
which again, I've gone on record several times and said it's one of the coolest names. When I heard it, and I remember it like yesterday. We were in one of those big Zoom meetings or networking groups because that's what we did in that time frame because
Yep.
it's all we had. And when somebody said the name of your book, I laughed out loud. I'm like, that's freaking hilarious. And that was when I reached out and like, this woman seems cool as shit. We've got to talk. And that one thing led to another. And now you are in the podcasting space. You've released a second book.
Yep.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut up and I'm going to let you tell the Bomb Squad all about Karin Freeland and all the great things you're doing to impact the world today.
Oh my goodness, where do you start? Okay, Cliff Notes version. Had a major midlife crisis in 2019. Was working at the height of my corporate career. I was in marketing most of the time, tech, energy, and just was miserable. I was like, this isn't what I signed up for. I always imagined my life would be a lot cooler. I went to school for dance. I have an acting background. Like, how did I end up here? And so I went on a bit of a self-discovery journey, realized that I would really regret not writing the memoir that I had started 10 years earlier when I was on maternity leave with my first son, and just went on a mission to finish this book. Had no idea if I would publish it or not.
Yeah.
Well, I started sharing the manuscript. People loved it. And I was like, okay, I got to do this. And so the book, the title we are talking about is, are you ready? I hope you're sitting
Bring it.
down. Earbuds, if you have little ones potentially. It's called The Ins and Outs of My Vagina, a Penetrating Memoir. And it was like the most anti-corporate thing I could do. Do you know what I mean? It was kind of like my big, like, forget you. I'm done. I need out. Now I wasn't actually out of corporate when I started writing it. So I had built this whole other persona. I joined Instagram. I started building a following and getting stuff out there so that when I launched, I would have a platform and I could then shortly after make an exit. Well, the universe gifted me a exit much sooner than I anticipated, and during COVID, I was laid off, which was fabulous. I always see people on LinkedIn and they're like, "I've just been laid off," and I'm like, "Congratulations, you've just been given a new life." Like it
It's all
excites me,
it's all
and
all in how you take that news.
totally. And people are like,
Mm,
"What? No, but I get it because it's your whole identity, right? There's like
mm,
a major identity shift. And that's why I think it took me so long to make the pivot from corporate into doing my own thing because there was no blueprint. I didn't have role models that were doing this initially. And it just felt really hard. And I'm like, I think I'm just stuck, right? Like, this
yeah,
is my bed. I got to lay in it.
yeah,
But once I started writing and getting really excited and people were like, no, this is actually really good. I was like, okay, maybe there is something to this.
yeah.
And so very shortly afterwards, getting laid off, I thought maybe I want to be a health coach. I don't know. I love fitness. And in talking to some other coaches, it like just dawned on me, okay, life coach, that's what I need to do because I want to help them with everything, the career, the relationship, the finances, the health, like all that, your spirituality and faith. Like, how do we bring all these pieces to the pie to the party, right? And make sure
Mhm.
we're fulfilled everywhere. And so that's what I get to do every single day is work with amazing women. I only coach women. I love you guys. Okay. But there's just something special about working with women, and we don't give ourselves permission a lot to go get the help that we need. So it's just something I feel really called to. So that's when I wrote the second book, Grab Life by the Dreams, The Essential Guide to Getting Unstuck and Living Your Purpose. And this is really the blueprint. Like, this is how I got unstuck. This is how I made the move. And then I share all those tools with you. I mean, it's like my whole edit methodology, which is my 4-step process for getting unstuck in goal setting and making
Mm.
plans. And it's just everything. And all my clients, like, I share some of their stories in there as well. So you can see it doesn't just work for me. I'm not a unicorn. This is applicable to everyone.
And I like how you've extended that to your podcast as well. So you're getting some of the coaching tips from your book, but you're also talking about some of your client victories
Oh,
and actually bringing your
totally.
clients on for conversations. I think that's a great touch. I think that's something that
Yeah.
all of us in that space we need to be focused on for sure.
Well, and that's a great point because, writing books is awesome. And I love that I have the hard copy. And I mean, of course, I don't have it right here somewhere, but I made a workbook to go with the ebook for the second one. So I really
Mhm,
try to extend that and give people more support. But it's not a conversation where I'm not with the reader where we
mhm.
can go back and forth and have this interaction in this relationship. And so podcasting brings that extra touch to it because you can message me and be like, hey, Karin, can you do this topic next week on your podcast? Or,
Mhm.
hey, I really loved this show, but I have a question about that. Like, how does that work? And we can have a dialogue. So for me, one of the big reasons that I wanted to bring podcasting to my business was to reach that end user, the reader, the person who needs that help and have a more intimate relationship with them than just being like over here speaking on stages and things like that, not really being accessible.
Yeah, there's that disconnection. It's not
Right.
really disconnection, but there's almost that illusion of it. If you're over here on stage writing your book, not giving anybody that access into your world a little bit more closely, at least, from what a podcast can give you,
Right.
it can make a person feel like maybe they're just not really here for me. They're just trying to sell a book. But
Right.
I think podcasting, it opens up all those doors, and I firmly believe that if you're an author these days, if you're writing books, you should have a podcast to accompany it. It doesn't have to be a podcast for each book, but
Right.
you should have something that gives people that accessibility. It's just natural to have people wanting to reach out to you for more. And if you
Yeah.
do continue to produce books or anything that comes along with that book as a maybe an ancillary offering,
Mhm.
you have a window in which to reach out to people and say, here, this can help you too.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And actually, I am launching something really exciting next week, and
Bring
I
it.
didn't even tell you.
Oh,
You heard it here first.
breaking news. This is
This is a
great.
Bombtrack Media exclusive.
Wish I
Yeah.
had some like breaking news music to throw up right now.
Oh,
Man, if we
yeah,
would
you
have
need one
planned
of those
ahead.
little ticker things along with
Yeah,
that at the
that sounds
bottom.
good.
Just envision. I think our audience is capable of envisioning that. So
Indeed.
I am bringing to market it's totally free, by the way, but it's called a career compass. And it is a decision-making matrix for women who are thinking about making a move in their career, whatever that move might be. And then you can actually create all the criteria of what's most important to you. We give you a scoring system. We show you a couple of different ways to think about making this decision so that you can take a lot of the emotion out of it and get into more of the facts. Because I think a lot of people who want to make a change in their life, we create these stories in our head. Oh, I
Yeah.
don't have enough money. Oh, my kids are going to need all this stuff to go to college. Or, oh, I'm not capable. I've never run a business before. Right. Like I could go on and on with all the lies that we tell ourselves. And those are just the three I named were all going on in my head too at one point.
Yeah.
Right. And then you realize that it's all BS and that the life you're living actually isn't what you want when you look at the criteria of what you want most in life and you see that maybe entrepreneurship or starting a podcast or doing something different would fulfill those requirements. It's a no-brainer, and it just
Yeah.
becomes now about the how do we put this into action?
That's really cool. So this is coming out very soon. How can people get their hands
August
on it?
5th. Yeah.
All
So of
right.
course, I mean, go to my website, KarinFreeland.com. You're going to find it there, but it'll be /career-compass. So
Okay.
we'll make
What
sure that I'll come back and comment in the
Okay. Well,
show.
I'll make sure that I pop that into the show notes as well. So when it does
Awesome.
go live, even though the live version obviously will be done unless you want to go for a week here, which
Yeah.
I'm crazy enough to try. But when you catch the replay on the podcast waves, that will be in the show notes. So if you're listening there, Bomb Squad, please check out what Karin has to offer. As of August 5th. If it's not August 5th
Yeah.
yet, I won't have that link live because
Right.
I have a dead link. I have to ask you this, Karin, because it's something that I've kicked around and I can't pull the trigger. And I'll tell you
Yeah.
why. I love working with women. I love working with men. I've never gone one way or another, but I had thought about what if I just focused on the dudes
Yeah.
and talked about building podcasts just with guys. And like I said, I can't pull that trigger because I love working with women and hearing their stories and
Right.
powerful women are sexy to me. I'm sorry. I'll just, full disclosure. I love that element that women bring to the stage, and
Yeah.
getting to work with them gives me an opportunity to watch it all unfold.
Mhm.
Why did you make that decision to only work with women. Was there any key elements involved? Obviously, it's not a sexism thing.
No,
Like,
no, right.
like you said, like I love the
Yeah.
guys, but was there like what led you to say, you know what, I'm just going to put this focus on women and only coach women?
Yeah. So one thing, first of all, let me just say, you don't have to niche the way I niched, right? So
Mhm.
you don't have to be gender specific. And there's a lot of coaches who aren't, and they're like, "Oh, you're missing out on a market." I'm like, "That's okay. There's plenty of women for me to serve."
Mhm.
So the one thing that I think you will find sometimes when you niche is that people will come to you anyway. I have guys reach out to me all the time and go, "Karen, do you have any room in your schedule?" And
Yeah.
occasionally I'll be like, okay, yeah, I can fit you in, and I
Mhm.
like might do him a favor, especially if I know the person. But generally speaking, I don't market it. But this is the story that we tell ourselves is if I niche, then I'm going to miss out on something. And it's actually the opposite. The more you niche, the more you get specific, people can see so vividly what you're doing that they will
Mhm.
then reach out to you and go, "I know this isn't really what you do, but how could you help me?" And so they're going to gravitate to you anyway. But I think for me, like the whole reason I left corporate is because I wanted to work with people that lit me up, that I gelled with, that I had camaraderie and understanding with. And there's just things that women go through, like having the brunt of most of the housework or having the brunt of the child care and experiencing mom guilt and those kinds of things. And I just felt so uniquely positioned to help with those things
Mhm.
that it made sense for me just to go all in. It's not that I couldn't help a man, but
Sure.
there could be things that men want to talk about that maybe they would be better suited to get support from a male. So I think it just also depends on the person. Some people are going to be better served by their own gender.
That's a very good spin on that, or a very good take on that. I feel like I like working with men and women, so I know that I
Yeah,
couldn't make that, but there's a lot of value in the niching down part. And
yeah,
before we went live, as I was telling you, next week I'm going to go solo because I'm making a couple changes to the show. There's very subtle. And
yeah,
honestly, I thought about it. I'm like, if I don't even say this, I don't know if anybody would really be able to tell the difference, because what I've never really specified with Let's Blow This Up is that it would be about podcasting. And when I did
mhm,
the first season, that it really wasn't the case. It was more about branding, more about building an impactful brand. But then when I went to the live format, I always had it in mind that I was going to do the live format, but always go back to doing seasons. And
right.
then I got thinking a little deeper, and then that whole niching down thing hit me of a lot of these conversations are happening here on the show, and they always seem to trend towards podcasting because these are my people. These are my tribe. These are the
Yeah,
folks that want to join me and have these conversations. Why am I not embracing that fully and saying that this is a show about podcasting? And
yeah.
it can be done in a live environment, but it also goes out as a podcast. So I'm going to get into more detail about this next week, obviously, but just to set the table for what everyone can expect, this show is going to be about brand podcasters. I want to talk
Mhm.
to business people, leaders, professionals, entrepreneurs, coaches, consultants that have adopted podcasting into all of their practices, authors as well. How are you using podcasting to connect with your readers? There is so much
Mhm.
value in that I feel not exploiting it is doing a disservice to the folks that watch this live or listen to the replay on Fridays. So
Yeah,
here we
no, I
are.
think that's really smart. And look, I have made other decisions where I decided not to niche, right? Where people
Mhm.
said, "Well, you should really focus on moms." And I'm like, "But I don't want to just focus on moms because I actually have a lot of women who are single or married with no kids in my practice. And I
Yeah.
love serving them and I love working with them, and we can do that, without them having kids or yeah. So or me being single, right? So it's okay that I'm married with kids. I can still
Mhm.
support them and serve them. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I think each person has to decide for their own business when to niche, how to niche, and try it on for size.
Yeah.
You may start going in a direction of a niche and then realize, oh no, I really missed out on that. And then you can go back, right? It's reversible. It's never
Yeah.
final.
Well, I think yeah, it was John Lee Dumas in his book that said niche down till it hurts.
Yeah.
If you are willing to get so incredibly tightly focused on that one person that you're looking to serve, more people like that are going to seek you out because they
Yeah.
know you are talking directly to them.
So
And
smart.
there's a ton of value in that. And that's, I'm looking at that with, I've mentioned to a couple people, I've been like in the lab trying to figure out a few things with my service offerings and adding a couple things here, tweaking a couple things there, just trying to get it tightened up. And I keep looking at it and saying, I want to niche down to just a couple core offerings
Mhm.
because this is where I know I can help somebody excel. This is what
Yes.
I've been doing in my practices to not just utilize podcasting for downloads. And that's where I think a lot of people, we've taught this, it's almost ad nauseum at this point.
Yep.
Many people get hung up on the download metric, not realizing all of the other intangibles that come along with a solid podcast structure, connecting with the right people, building those relationships, establishing goals that are attainable. I'm not trying to say you're going to be Joe Rogan in a month. These are things that I know I can work with people on in the
Right.
very beginning, because I firmly believe that there are so many people that bail on this because they don't come into it with the
Yes.
right mindset. That's where it starts for me. If you don't
Totally.
think
I
about
mean,
this the right way, you're done.
and I would be lying if I said that there were not days where I hadn't had those feelings like, oh my gosh, 28 people listened to this episode.
Sure, we all have.
Really? I just put my heart and soul out there and like this. I was so passionate about this topic.
Mhm.
But you know what? 28 people that really needed to hear that topic got
Mhm.
exactly what they needed. And if
Yep.
I convert one of those to a client for an
Good enough.
hour's work,
Yep.
it's a
You've done your
no-brainer.
you've done your job. And what a lot of people fail to look at is 28 isn't a temporary or isn't a permanent number. It's temporary.
Right.
That number is going to go up. And what may have happened, that 28th listener may have said, wow, this is great. What have I missed? And they jump back in the catalog. So all those numbers just went up
Yep.
by one as well. It's hard to get yourself, again, it's one of the biggest peeves I have about the podcast host platforms is this number stares you in the face when you log in. You have to mentally train yourself to not get fixated because if you're coming into it for the first time, you're like, oh my God, here we go. The moment of truth. Who listened to my podcast? And you log in, it's like 4.
Right.
When you're brand new and you haven't established your audience, that's reality because you have to prove yourself. You have to get better at what you're doing. You have to be consistent. There's so many things that you have to think about. That number cannot be what detours you, because if it does, wow, are you doing it for the wrong reasons? And
Totally.
so looping this back to what I was saying, this is what I want to be helping people with.
Yeah.
And in developing my VIP experiences, that was what it was all about, was building out the mindset, the strategy, and then the execution part of it. Building it also, you have actual content that goes live for the right reasons, and then we can evaluate and keep building on it and building on it. That's really where I want to be, not doing a bunch of off brand, let's try this for a week and see if that works. Like, let's niche all this down to the core focus of where I want to be and where I can help people the most. There's so much power in that. I recommend it to everyone.
Well, and this is the thing, right? By you being so focused, your show is going to have so much more impact because you're
Mhm.
going to be giving them what they actually need. When you're trying, at least in my experience, when you're trying to serve everybody, right? Like for a long time, I was trying to serve women who want to stay in corporate and women who want to leave corporate and women who want to go to nonprofits and like all these different things. And I'm like, okay, but then my emails, I can't be just talking about leaving corporate because now I got all these people who want to stay in corporate. And then I can't just be talking about balance because I got all these other, and it was just like, I
Yeah, you're
kept
all over the
pulling
map.
myself. So then you're saying nothing. It's just a lot of gobbledygook and you're not actually getting people results and transformation. Whereas I've really started to lean in on being that person who's going to help you make your exit plan. 6 months or less, we're going to get you out of corporate. And so that is so much easier to speak to that and to help people come up with the plan and then show tangible results that the ones who need that information are now able to find me and move through the funnel.
This was really brought to my attention in a big way at a conference a few years ago when I was at one of the breakouts or one of the sessions, and they were talking about how you needed to have a presence everywhere. And the reason I didn't walk out was because the first thing I said was, really? We're still having this conversation? Because I actually spoke up and said, to give some backstory on this, basically they were saying, like, here's how you have a presence on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat and YouTube and LinkedIn. And I'm like, holy shit, like, how many hours do you have in the day? Because I want a few of them. I don't have that kind of time.
Yeah.
No one has that type of bandwidth to be fully present. on those platforms. I don't care if you're automating or not, just to be able to be engaged on every one of those platforms, especially as a solopreneur, it is not realistic and it's going to burn you out.
Mhm.
So I made that point of them saying, if you're everywhere, people are going to find you and they're going to be, because they're everywhere. So I said, well, if people are everywhere, why can't they come to where I'm making the most impact and engage with me there? That's going to save my stress, but it's also going to allow me to be fully present and fully engaged, thus making a bigger impact versus trying to spread myself so thin
Sure.
that I'm out of the game. And that's when I realized for me, that wasn't even social media, that was podcasting.
Yeah.
And that's why I've taken a step back over the last couple of weeks on my live streams just to get a couple things tightened up. But when I go back into it full bore, it's going to be for the right reasons. And it's going to be with a new plan of action, knowing exactly who I'm talking to and what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So for me, this is where I want to be. I want to be live. I want to be creating podcast content. I'll hang out on Instagram. I'll hang out on Facebook, but I'm not trying to spend hours at a time. In fact, I'll be talking with my friend, our mutual friend, Megan Shields, about like, what can I do to be doing ads in this space? Because I know that's where Megan rules in that regard.
And everyone knows I love Megan.
Oh, she's awesome.
She's the best.
And she's got so much knowledge and she's crushing it. Like her shit's on fire right now with everything she's doing. So I highly recommend looking up Chime House Media Bomb Squad. If you're looking for that advertising edge, Matt and Megan got it going on and Megan is killing it. So little shout out to our friends in Charlotte, NC.
Yeah.
But overall, that for me is making life a lot more simple, but it's also making things more fun and engaging because I know when I'm on these platforms, I'm having a blast. And I'm having conversations like this, or whether I'm doing it solo and just talking to folks that are watching it live, to me, I know that's where I can make the most impact and have the most engagement, whether it's direct engagement or just making an impact. I'm going to do more there versus trying to put up an Instagram post that potentially goes viral.
Right.
And you have to find that. And if you don't, you'll burn out quick. Believe me, it can lead you down a dark path.
Totally. I mean, I'm with you. And I've tried the whole be everywhere strategy and it did burn me out and it wasn't fun. So here's the thing. I always tell my clients when I'm coaching someone who's starting a business, you want to be having fun. If you're not having fun, let's look at why you're not having fun. It might be a matter of outsourcing something, right? There might be something we could do to make this fun again. But if it's really not fun, don't do it. I tried to download TikTok and I thought I was going to throw up in my mouth. And I was like, I don't want to do TikTok. I'm like, I actually hate TikTok. I think it is ruining people's social capabilities. I think it is ruining our society at large. I hate TikTok. I'm not on it. I won't be on it. So it's not going to happen. And the second thing is, where are your clients? The 6-figure females who are in leadership roles that are hiring me to help them exit corporate are not hanging out on TikTok. They're freaking busy. They're working on a PowerPoint presentation for the board tomorrow and they're not looking at their cell phones. So the only place I really need to be is LinkedIn. And I have massively scaled back in a lot of my social. I took my VA off of my Instagram feed. I took it back. I was like, I'll just post here and there.
Yeah, whenever I want. Right. Yeah.
Right. Like I don't need to be spending money on building a profile and a platform on these spaces if it's not where my ideal client is hanging out. So 1, are you having fun? 2, is it where your clients actually are? If it is, then that's the place that you want to be.
Everything you do with those elements has to be strategic now. It can't just be because, when I first saw that presentation that didn't change my thinking. I was already thinking this way, but it just added to more fuel to the fire of back off. It doesn't need to be like they're saying.
Right.
The organic content was still very relevant. Not saying it's irrelevant now. I'm not.
Right.
There are absolutely strategies that you should have in place for your organic content, but it's now more pay to play. It's now more driven towards advertisements. It's more driven towards algorithm versus your organic posting. And they're not just giving you like, if I come on the feed, very rarely would I see something from you. Unless I'm engaging with every single thing you do. And that's telling the algorithm, I want to see everything Karin gives me because I'm spending time with it, which is, that's the way it should be. But overall for me, I was just like, you know what, there's no value in being on a platform that makes me miserable. And TikTok was the exact same for me. I got on there because it was Gary V. I'm being influenced by the biggest influencer in the world, right? Go figure. But he kept talking about the value of TikTok, power of TikTok, got to be on TikTok. I said, fine, screw it. I'll give it a shot. I don't know how long I was on there, but I never experienced more negativity in the comments than I had there. And it was just like the one I'll never forget because it was hilarious. And I actually asked people, and now it's going to, for the rest of this live stream, people might be watching to see this. Guy says, why don't you move your bottom lip when you talk? And I said, that's the stupidest feedback I think I've ever received. And
now I'm like, his bottom lip is moving.
Exactly. That's what I said. So he got me paranoid. I was going back and looking at videos and I said, where the hell did he get that from? It was weird. But overall, I guess looking at other posts, people are dicks on that platform. And I'm just like, why am I spending time here? No. It's toxic. It's just not for me. I get that, other people that have gotten their start, their boost, they've made it because of TikTok. God bless them. I'm happy for them. It just wasn't my space, and it wasn't the people that I wanted to be connecting with. Maybe there's people in my tribe there, but I wasn't willing to sift through all of the bullshit to find them.
No, you have to protect your energy, your space, your positive vibes, your high vibration, all that. Pick the term you want to use. Like, I am just very specific about protecting all of that in my life, because I used to be the negative Nancy, right? I used to be the person who blamed everybody else for everything and was miserable and toxic. And it's just like, oh, I don't ever want to feel like that again or give that vibe to anyone else. Awful.
Yeah. It's no fun. And that's where, unfortunately, a lot of social media has gone, which has led me on my little crusade. I know we talked about this in Charlotte, that podcasting is more of a social media platform because you can underline the word social and actually mean it.
Right.
With the literal social media platforms of the world, no one's being social. They're just being asses to one another. And no one can have an opinion without somebody else swooping in and telling them why they're wrong and they're right.
Right.
It's crazy. But at least in podcasting, you can have a healthy debate. You can have some good conversation back and forth. It's the social elements that we used to have more on social media, but with the dial turned up to 11, which is why I love it, because I'm sure people have realized it by now. I love to talk.
Yeah.
And I get to do
that.
I
would hope so as a podcast host, right? It's like you find your niche, right? You find your thing, your passion, the thing you're good at. It's awesome. You want to be living in flow and in that place of strength.
That's
I was reading that comment.
So ask why you don't blink 3 times after asking a question to a guest. Is that like a Morse code thing that I miss that I should be doing more of?
I don't know. We're going to have to send you some mascara so we can really see the blink,
Is that what we're going to do?
No. I mean, we could.
I'm surprised. Well, yeah, if I post this on TikTok, that will probably be one of the comments that pops in.
Great. Well, I don't remember what I was saying. It's fine.
I know. I kind of like TikTok sucks. I think that was kind of the point we were both driving at. That's always easy to go back to. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the podcasting for you. So you're, oh gosh, I had this number. You're in your 40s now with the number of episodes, right?
Yes, that's in awesome. Episodes and in age. It's very symbolic right now. Yeah, I'm really excited because I did not know that a very small percentage of podcasters, and I wish I knew the number, and if Alex was here, he would know it. But a very small percentage of podcasters ever make it to 50 episodes. So I am like number 42 this week, or 41 or 42. I forget.
Good for you. No,
but
that's
so
phenomenal.
I'm almost there.
The big stat that I heard very recently, and it's the one that I've been leaning into a lot, just to stress the importance of understanding your strategy and understanding why you're doing this, is 90% don't get past 3. So
why even bother? It's so much effort to start podcasting. Why would you just have
all that front end work to only put out 3 episodes. I'm going to do an episode about this, and I'm not, this isn't any type of proprietary information, so I don't know why I'd be afraid to share it. There is an easy fix for that statistic. Why the hell are you launching your podcast so fast?
Right.
I think what a lot of people are doing is they're just recording one episode and they're so jazzed to get it out there. They just pump it out and see what happens. That's a bad launch strategy. That does
Yeah.
not give your audience anything to sink their teeth into. It doesn't
Mhm.
set you up for success. You should be treating your launch like the Macy's Day Parade. You should
Yeah.
be putting this out there in a way that people can get excited just as much as you are. Because
Mhm.
I just dropped a video series that for listeners that haven't checked that out, jump over to bombtrackmedia.com/free and you can pick up that video series. But I had talked about how I guarantee anybody that quit after 3 episodes not too far before that was so excited, had
Yeah.
all of the passion and the energy in the world to bring this idea to life. But they started doing it and then realized how much work was involved and they got fixated on the wrong things.
Yep.
And again, if you put that first episode out there as a standalone episode and then like next day you go in thinking the world's just changed and the whole world showed up to listen, you are in for some massive disappointment.
Yes.
And that's what derails so many people. So anybody that I run into on social media that is beyond 10, beyond 15, 20, I know there was a couple people on Threads that I was congratulating the other night because somebody said they just launched their 20th. I think one person said they just hit, I can't remember the number of downloads, but I said, congratulations. Because again, like these are all milestones that you should be
Yes.
celebrating because so many
Totally.
people don't get anywhere near it.
Yeah, well, people are not accustomed to celebrating, and that's one of the things I see
Yeah.
in coaching too with my clients. It's like they'll hit these milestones and I'm like, whoa, 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 that's huge. I'm like, we need to celebrate. And they're like, no, just accomplishing that is celebration enough. I'm like, no, it's not. I'm like, we
Yeah.
need to develop a reward system and a connection between what you just did and in your brain, like something.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with podcasting. Like if you don't want to give up and you want to stay energized and excited about it, then you have to celebrate when you hit these different milestones. It's important.
And celebrate right from the start. All
Mhm.
that work that goes into launching your podcast should be celebrated. You should be in a position, if you do this right, to where once that content goes live, you can sit back for a minute, have a
Yeah.
cocktail, have a steak, do whatever you do to celebrate. Let your audience consume that content and give you some
Mhm.
feedback. Don't
Yeah.
just put out one episode and expect the whole world to change. I recommend 5. Give
Yeah.
your audience 5 episodes right out of the gate. Now, a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people do 3. It's fine. Like again, it's as long as it's more than 1, I'm fine. But
Right.
I think 5 is a nice block of content. Whether you drop them all at once or you do one per day over the course of the 5 weekdays, that
Yeah.
can open up some ideas for you to say, okay, which episode did the most in regards to early download or early listenership? Maybe that's the day I should be releasing my episodes every week. Little things like that
Right.
can come along in that, but overall, you're giving your audience something they can really wrap their arms around. And when they give feedback, it's not just based on one episode.
Right.
Also, maybe, and this is just hopefully this wouldn't be the case, but maybe episode 1 wasn't their jam.
Right.
Maybe episode 1, you were just coming into your own and figuring this shit out. If you
Yes.
cut it off at that, and if people aren't grabbed by it, they're out. They're
Yeah.
off to somebody else's podcast. But if you give them a nice block of content to pull themselves into, now they're listening to more. They're getting a feel for the whole spiel. It's not just based
Yeah.
on one episode. So many advantages to that. And you want to get that freaking 3 episodes or 90% of people not getting beyond 3 episodes out of here. You
Yeah.
should
It's
have 12 to
crazy.
15 in the bank before you ever go
Yep.
live. And if you're truly planning out your podcast right, you'll have that because you'll know these are all the things I want to talk about, and you want to put yourself in a position to win.
Yeah.
And then you can make transitions and changes as you go, but you're not setting yourself up for a collapse right out of the gates.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I now myself, because I love to go on podcasts as well and promote everything I'm doing, the
Right.
books, the coaching, whatever, the podcast itself. And what I have started doing is saying, I will not go on your show unless you've hit a certain number of episodes. I don't
Yeah.
want to be your first guest anymore. I don't, because I have recorded so many episodes that have never even seen the light of day. And I
Yeah.
have recorded
Yeah.
so because they gave up before they launched my episode. And
Yep.
I have recorded so many episodes that saw the light of day and then the show ended and now there's no one's finding it and listening to it. So,
Yeah.
because they're not promoting the show. So
Right.
I'm really, for anyone who's watching that has a business or is a speaker, coach type, anything, and you're thinking about getting your personal brand out there, you want to be discerning about which podcasts you go on, look at how long they've been around,
Yeah.
make sure, even ask the person, hey, how long are you planning to have this show? Are you
Yeah.
planning to take any breaks in the near future? Like, just get an idea, a sense from the host that they're in this for the long haul before you spend time going on an episode.
Yeah, it's incredibly unfortunate when you put yourself in that position because you want to help people that seem genuine,
Yep.
but also if they're not doing it for the right reasons, that is a very big risk that you run. Like, you do take that time to record with them and then they never post it. Or something that I found, we'll call it incredible. It is what it is. I've talked to some people because I asked the question blatantly, if you find a podcast that seems like they have content that you'd be willing to listen to, but they aren't producing new content. Let's say the show has been done. They just pod faded a year ago.
Right.
Will you listen to that? And most people say no.
Yeah.
Now, I don't have exact numbers on that. This is just, I've had some casual conversations with people and that came up. I asked and most of them say, no, I'm looking for new shows that are bringing out new content. And
Yep.
I feel that the newer episodes are going to speak more to what's happening in my world now. And if I do fall in love with that podcast or that host, then I'll go back and I'll check out the archives and I'll dig in a little deeper. But if they're not producing anything new, there's a chance that I'm going to be listening to outdated information. Therefore, I'm not going to take the time.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting perspective. Again, I've retired a couple shows, but I never left it hanging.
Right.
I always say, like, I did a rundown when I killed off Evolution of Brand. I ran down some last episodes, and then I did a whole finale of this is it.
Yeah.
Because I needed to make a pivot, and there was no shame in that. I
Right.
just made sure I did it the right way.
Yes, exactly. I think that's the important thing, right? Is that you're doing it with integrity for the audience who has been loyal to you, that's been on this ride with you, and doing a service to all of your guests who have been there as well. So, but of course you would do it right because you're the pro at this, right?
Yeah, I'd be kind of a dick if I just walked away and told everybody else not to do the same thing, right?
Right? Yeah. You gotta walk the talk.
Full disclosure, I was thinking about that this week because with Podcast Theory, my other show, I have been trying my ass off to figure out how I want to do the show. And I did a live stream where I explained, okay, here's what I'm going to do. And I literally got done and I said, this is the worst live stream I have ever done. I felt so off my game and I hated what I laid out for myself to do. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go against my own rules because I announced this past Monday it was going to start. And this past Monday, I just went in and I deleted the live stream completely and wiped it off the planet so no one will ever see it again. And I felt bad because there were people that listened to that may have been waiting. And I said, son of a bitch, I am doing a disservice to my audience. However, that said, I felt that if I went down the path that I had laid out for myself, as much as I hated it, I would have been doing them an even bigger disservice if I continued going down that road.
Yeah.
I'm trying to put myself in a position to where I'm doing this in a way that they get the impact that they tune in for.
Sure.
So it's a temporary disservice for now that's going to lead to a better outcome once things pick back up, which will be very soon. I'm not going to put this off forever, but I couldn't see myself being comfortable, happy, or engaging in the way that I had set it up. And then that just blows everything up as well. And it puts everybody in a position of what the hell is happening right now.
Yeah. Because we like to blow things up here, but in a good way.
That's the idea. That's the idea.
Yes.
If I'm blowing things up, it's going to be for a positive outcome.
Yes.
And again, all about the long-term service that I'm bringing to my listeners. I think that's something that podcasters sometimes get hung up in, that element of needing to be present every single week. They almost make themselves feel guilty. I know, Mark, if you're still watching, I know you've talked about this before too. Taking a break is like taboo for podcasters. Right. I can't walk away from my show. My listeners are going to bail and never come back. No, they're not. If you pod fade and you tell them I'll see you next week and you never come back, hell yeah, they're gone, because now they're going to work in somebody that is reliable.
Yeah.
But if you communicate and lead up to the fact that we're going to wrap things up on this date for about a month or 2 months, and we're going to go on sabbatical. We're going to take a hiatus from the show. I encourage you in the meantime, jump back in the archives and get caught up on some of the episodes you've missed. We're going to be back with fresh content on this day. That's it. That's all you have to do. But so
Yeah.
many people lack that communication piece and they lose listeners. And then it becomes even easier to go, well, shit, I'm just going to be done with this altogether. And they
Right.
never come back. That's why I feel we have so many shows in the graveyard right now.
And the thing is, too, I think somewhere along the line, these people probably heard you can't walk away. You or can't take a break, right? If you take a break, then all the horror stories and how it's just everything's gonna fall apart. And
Yeah.
I think that the same thing happens to people when they're trying to reinvent their life or they're trying to make a change, right? They hear all these things, and because they don't know and they've never experienced it, they just think it's true. They take it for granted, right? Like, oh, well, starting a business is really hard and you'll never have any income. And oh my gosh, go get health insurance. What are you going to do without health insurance? I don't know. You're going to do what the other umpteen million entrepreneurs do. You're going to buy it on the open market. You'll be fine. It's okay. You can figure it out. You're a smart cookie, right? But we just take it for granted. So then we kill ourselves. We burn out. We experience this like lackluster life or whatever. We start to resent our business or whatever it is that because we are believing lies or something that someone else said because that was their experience. Doesn't mean it's going to be your experience. So it's just like putting the blinders on sometimes and just being like, what do I want? How do I want to do this? How do I want to run my podcast? How do I want to run my business? How do I want to run my coaching practice? Like, just ask yourself those questions and turn inward and go, what do I want? That's where the secret to happiness is. That's where you find the real answers.
Bingo. It's important to realize it's amazing that we lose sight of this too, that this is our business. This is our thing. We can do what makes us happy in doing it, but also leads to a productive final product.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, what the hell are we doing? We're wasting everyone's time, including our own.
Yeah.
And listen, I'm not perfect in this respect. I will catch myself often saying, dude, why are you doing this to yourself? Hold back. I just told that story a few moments ago about podcast theory. Why put myself in a position to where I'm not going to be happy with the content I'm creating because it feels like a chore? That doesn't come across good for anybody. No. I mean, I know when we were in Charlotte, I had said how I was planning these daily live streams. It wasn't that it was hard, because believe me, I love going live. I love this way to create content. Where I was struggling was finding the right time. And that was the thing. I was like, I'm always going to have different times during the day where something else is happening. To lock into this specific time every day, dude, no, that is never going to work. And that was my biggest struggle. And that's why I felt so stupid, because I was telling people, just subscribe on YouTube and click the bell so you get a notification. Well, even if you get a notification, it's not like you can just drop everything. Right. Oh, Jason's live. I've got to watch him now. No, I mean, that was so obviously turning it into a podcast was a big deal for me as well, because at least on the audio end of things, you can catch that on replay, or they'll drive you back to YouTube to watch the replay, whatever. But overall, for me, that was where I was looking at it and saying, like, okay, no one's telling you have to do it this way. So why are you doing it?
Right.
You need to take a step back and reevaluate and get it right. So there can be long-term gains out of this. But so many
times I did the same thing. It's so funny because I feel like everybody does it, but you have to kind of experience it for yourself before it like clicks and you're like, oh yeah, why am I doing this? But I did that with my Facebook group. I would go live every Thursday night at 8 p.m. And then I was like, why am I doing this at 8 p.m.? Now I got to get all jazzed up again and looking glam and get on this live. And like, I just want to be down on the couch, snuggling with my husband or helping my kids with homework or being like doing anything other than this and being forced to do this right now. Yeah. So finally I was just like, I'm not going to have a regular set day and time. And I know there's a million entrepreneurs that would tell me, Karin, that's wrong. That's why you don't have as many people watching. And I'm like, oh, well, that doesn't work for me. So it's fine.
I'm laughing because I know when you said in Charlotte, you said, I'll make the exception and I'll get ready to come on at 8 o'clock for you. So I appreciate that, because I know I am interrupting your normal Wednesday evening activities.
Yeah, I'm snuggle time with my husband is canceled for this evening.
My apologies to your husband for that.
He'll survive.
I hopefully at some point, if I ever get to meet him, I'll buy him a beer. I can make it up to him.
Well, thank
But
you.
honestly, this is something I was thinking about tonight because, as I said, next week I'm going to go into more detail about this, but I'm going to try to lead into it so I have some feedback from people that I can talk about on this thing as I go solo.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about changing to 7:00. And the
Mm.
reason why I picked 8:00 when I first came out with this was more about I was thinking. I listen. This is just my thing. I draw a lot of parallels between old school network TV and podcasting. When did all the big primetime shows start back in the day? And still to some degree, 8:00.
Yep.
And I always say, okay, if there's nothing good on Wednesday night at 8:00, you can come hang out here and watch us on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. But I also wonder, maybe 8:00, is that too late? I don't know.
Mm.
There's the argument to be made that this show has not been around long enough to establish the listenership to even make that determination, and that's something else I'm considering as well.
Yeah.
But I thought, at least from viewers that have watched, would you prefer 7:00? Would you prefer 8:00? I know personally, even when I think, I'm like, yeah, it'd be cool. I'd still be able to get to bed on time. I could do the post production on the replay and be done with that, and not be up till 11 or 12. That all sounds really good as a 44-year-old that values his sleep.
Right.
So I don't know. We're gonna see where it
So
goes.
much more important the older you get.
No shit.
like,
Yeah. God. Yeah.
How much sleep is that going to deprive me of?
I
You
know.
know?
I start. Yeah. You plan around. Okay. I got to get up at 6. That means I have to be in bed by 10. I
Yeah.
got to get my 8, or else I'm
Totally.
screwed. Yeah.
Oh,
No, that's
same
okay.
way.
No shame in that game.
No.
Like my dad always told me, nothing good happens after midnight anyway.
No.
could-
And there's
you
nothing good on TV.
And there's
So,
nothing good.
or
Yeah.
Netflix or Hulu or any of that. Oh,
Yeah,
like,
that'll always be there. Well, I know. Well, that's something. This is a little off subject, but I remember from our last conversation, you cut all of that out of your family's life, right? You have no streaming, nothing.
nada.
That's awesome.
Oh, it is fantastic. It is, well, the only downside is I never know what's happening. So people will be like, my mom will call me. She's like, did you know there's a hurricane coming? I'm like, no clue. Thanks for letting me know. So I'm totally out of the loop on anything that's happening. But it's fabulous because there's very few things that are actually happening that have any impact on me whatsoever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love it. And I'm so much more productive. We have such a better family unit. We're so much more connected because we aren't all staring at the TV and zoning out. You get more sleep because you don't get sucked into some show. And yeah, it's great. I love it. I highly recommend it. Try it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. And that's the thing. Like, even I have a couple streaming services, but I'm almost wondering, I'm like, do I need them? I mean, they're small, like $6.99 a month, but I'm like, do I watch enough of this to make it even that little investment worth it? I don't know.
It's like not even about the money, it's just about like, what is it taking me away from? Like you could be reading a self-help book that would change your life instead of watching, I don't even know. I can't even name you a show because I have no idea what's out there.
Yeah,
I would say like The Walking Dead, but that was like 10 years ago when we didn't watch TV. I don't know.
The Office, like there's
so much more that you could be doing with that time than just getting sucked in.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No question. No,
well, my 2 cents.
No, and
I'm
I think
blowing up your life. I'm like, no TV.
Well, you
no
promised
alcohol.
that.
No, what?
You promised that you were going to blow some things up tonight. That's what we do on this show. So I'm glad that you brought the fire. So no, yeah, that's right. So no alcohol either, right? I can't remember how long.
So I'm working. I am not fully.
Okay.
But we don't have it in the house.
Okay.
My husband hasn't had a drink in 4 years.
Good for him.
So he is my rock. And I'm pretty good. I mean, I probably for this calendar year, I've maybe had 5 drinks total.
There you go.
Maybe?
That's the thing for me. I've always been a very social drinker. If I'm going to drink, it's usually with other people because that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Here at the house, I can't even remember. You know what? I can remember now that I think about it. This is kind of crazy. By myself, and it wasn't even really by myself, when I live streamed with Wiley McGraw.
Yeah.
This was a few months ago. We both, because he had got me a bottle of scotch for when I was on his podcast.
Aww.
So I said, like I still have some left. I'll pour a glass and you pour a glass. So we'll sip whiskey like we did when we did your show.
Yeah.
That is the last time that I was physically in my house by myself with a drink.
Yeah.
Other time?
I'm never telling people that you can't drink. Okay. I'm asking people to look at their situation and say, does this serve me? So if
Mhm.
you go out and you socially have a drink, that's not probably an issue.
Yeah.
I was drinking 3 glasses of wine a night to self-medicate and numb myself from my life I created that I hated and my soul-sucking job. So that was very different,
Right.
right? Like, so you
Right.
have to look at the context too. But once you start to get off of all that and you clear all the fog and you look at all the yucky, inconvenient truths, you start to realize, oh, wow, okay, like I can actually change this. This doesn't have to be my default. I don't have to live like this anymore. It's very freeing.
And I saw a great reel today from Alex Hormozy, and for especially people like you and I in our 40s, drinking is costing you 2 days.
Mhm.
It's costing you the day that you're doing it, and then it's costing you your recovery day. And God, is that the truth anymore?
It's so painful. Don't
It
like, no,
sucks. I used
so
to,
much.
I used to go out all night and just start the next day like a hummingbird.
Yeah.
Now it's just nope, I'm useless. And that's honestly, it's a lot of what I factor in. If I know I have something I want to do the next day, I don't want to feel like crap when I'm doing it. Nor do I
No.
want to be so zapped that I don't do anything.
Right.
And so I factor in, okay, like now's the time to dial back or not drink at all because I don't
Yeah.
want to. I know when we were in Charlotte, we were out all the nights, but I just kept it. I took it easy because I knew I wanted to be functional the next day and not be stupid. Like this is not like
Yeah.
back in the day when it was, I don't want to say acceptable. It's just what we did. But
Yeah.
now
And
it's
now there's so
a
many
different world.
mocktails, or I'm just like, give me a seltzer with like club soda, with like a cranberry and a lime. It'll look
See,
fancy. I look like I'm having a great time, but
yeah.
I'm fine.
And I have no shame. I'll just
Water.
drink water. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't need to have a big fancy glass just to say I have a drink in my hand. I will just
Right.
drink water. I'm in all of those environments to socialize,
Yeah.
whether it's with a drink or not. That doesn't matter. I'm getting to meet some people, and sometimes I'm sure you've experienced this too. You get around people that embellish a little too much with the alcohol, and all of a sudden these aren't the
Yeah.
people I want to be talking to anymore. So, boy,
Totally.
did we venture off the path here? I wanted to.
We did, but we didn't, because we did say we were going to talk about reinventing your life. And these
Well,
are
that is
all the
true.
things that then led me into podcasting, right? And now I get to share all of this stuff. And I think that's one of the things that's so cool about podcasting. And you touched on it earlier, is just the ability to share your thoughts without immediately having like 100 people posting and saying, you're wrong. No,
Mhm.
right. And your listeners can decide for themselves if they gel with what you're saying or they don't. I mean, there's going to be people who listen to me and go, I could never give up TV. Karen, no way. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
I'm out. Okay, you're not ready for this yet. You come back when you are.
Karen, with a tear in my eye, I have to say that is the greatest transition back into the subject at hand that we've ever had on this show. Well played. You are a podcaster. You are proving it. Wonderful segue back to the main subject.
I try.
You do well. But no, in all seriousness, you're right. That it all comes down to what makes you happy, what
Mhm.
makes you productive, what makes you feel like you're doing the right thing for your tribe, for your people.
Yeah.
If you have those elements in your life and you're still able to show up and bring the goods, don't rock the boat. But
Right.
if you feel there are things that you need to look at and reevaluate, don't be afraid to do that. Again, taking a step back for the right reasons is good. Throwing in the towel after 3 episodes because you didn't plan your shit out right, that's wrong. And that, again, that mentality can transcend podcasting. That can
Oh,
go into
yeah.
how you run your life, how you run your business. If you're
Yeah.
not thinking about all of these key elements and coming at it with strategy,
Right.
you're going to be in a very rough spot. And sometimes it can be almost nearly impossible to bounce back from that spot.
Mm-hmm. But it's
Man,
always possible. There's always a way.
there's always something. For the women watching, you reach out to Karen and she's going to get you on the right path. And if you're one of the lucky guys, that she may squeeze you in the schedule for a quick consultation.
You never know.
Hopefully that's me. Hopefully if I call you up and say, hey, I need to talk, you can bring me
Anything
in.
for you.
I appreciate that. Karen, as I expected, this was an awesome conversation. I'm so glad that we got to do this.
Me too.
So I want to give you an opportunity to throw out one more plug, one more place to go for our listeners and viewers in the Bomb Squad to connect with you, get more value, and ultimately be impacted by the one and only Karin Freeland?
Yeah, go to the podcast, Rock Your Reinvention. It's on all the platforms. You gotta go check it out.
And it's funny, I put at Karin Freeland here on the graphic that I'm showing on the video, and you're saying like, I'm very rarely on Instagram anymore, but
No, I am
KarinFreeland.com
on
was
Instagram. I do it now, though. I just don't pay for
just don't
my
pay
for a
somebody, yeah.
person to do it. So yes, come hang out with me on Instagram. I have my little broadcast channel, so you can get some behind the scenes goodies that nobody else gets. So yeah, we would love to have you on there and say hi. Let me know that you listened to the show, and let me
Yes.
know what a good takeaway was or something that gave you an aha, because that's helpful for me so I can help others.
Yeah, as a listener of Karin's show, I recommend check that out. And I have to say, I'm just a smidge disappointed. I was expecting to see the sock filter on your microphone
I'm
for our
so
show tonight.
sorry. How dare I?
There
That's
it
so
is.
rude of me. Thank you. This is how I podcast. So this is the other thing. You don't have to wait till you have it perfect. You don't need tons of fancy equipment. You just need a message, 5 episodes, Jason's help to get all your launch package and stuff, and a sock over the mic as a filter. It's fine.
I love
it. Works.
Now, that's been talked about too. There are many podcasters that set up shop in a closet using the clothing as natural noise absorption, not natural noise absorption, but noise absorption. So it's perfect sound. Who gives a damn that you're in the closet doing it? It sounds good. That's what you're trying to get at the end of the day. So lean into the imperfections because they can bring some beautiful things to your final product.
And it's a great talking point.
And exactly. I remember that photo that you shared before we went to Charlotte came up a lot. So I think that was very well planned on your part.
Thank you.
All right, Karin, this has been so much fun. We got to do it again sometime. You're more than welcome to join me anytime here on Let's Blow This Up Live. For our listeners and viewers in the Bomb Squad, as I talked about a little bit already in this episode, I'm going to be going live solo next week to share some of the new things that I've been working on. The slight change of direction here with Let's Blow This Up Live and Podcast Theory as well as a third live stream that I am developing, and that is going to be a fun one. And I hope that everybody else understands why I'm doing it. So when I share why, it's going to make more sense, and hopefully you'll want to be a part of it. So next week, 8:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook, I shall return by myself to let you know what is happening as we move into August and the rest of 2024 and beyond. Until then, on behalf of Karin Freeland, this has been Let's Blow This Up Live. Once again, Karin, thank you so much. My name is Jason Sircone, and until our paths cross again, stay explosive. We'll see you next week.